And that was part 5 of the Vermont Movie. Again, I am joined by Nora Jacobson. My name is Colin Parker, and we're going to be talking a little bit about part 5. And we're joined by 2 of the directors of segments from part 5, Holly Stadtler and Bobbie Lanahan. We will get to you in a moment. Nora, I want to start with you. This segment was very heavy on farming, obviously. What do you see as the future of farming in Vermont? I remember years ago we were hearing about how farms were dying off and that kind of thing. Is it making a comeback? Is the organic movement helping? Is the farm-to-table movement helping? What do you see as the future of farming in the state of Vermont?
Yes, I think actually the organic farming movement and the localvore movement are really, really important. And I think that more and more is what's going to define farming in Vermont. Just because Vermont is small, the fields are small. We don't have these huge rolling fields like in the Midwest. And so I think Vermont is really well suited to this smaller scale farming, and not just dairy, but sheep and goats and vegetables. So yeah, I think Vermont has a great future in farming if it does it on this level.
We can hope, certainly, yes. Holly, let me turn to you. We'll come back to farming in a moment when we talk with Bobbie about her segment. You talked about the water rights issue and whose water is it. Tell me a little bit about, actually, let's start. We'll show a clip first from one of your segments. This is Holly Stadtler's portion of the Vermont Movie.
One of the neighbors in East Montpelier started a community neighborhood dinner, and we get together once a month as a community, and we all bring our plates and our forks and our cups, so nobody has to do a lot of dishes.
And it's potluck, what they used to call a covered dish. And what happens is that if anyone's having a problem, if anyone is sick, if they need help with anything, you find out. It's more than social.
And since we all get together and we all know each other, it was very easy to just say, would you like this informational meeting about bottling the spring water?
I get the sense watching this, Holly, that this is small town Vermont at its best. And had this been New York City or Philadelphia or even, outside of Boston, Newton, say, for example, it wouldn't have gone quite that way. How do you view that? I mean, how much of a role did small community play in this moratorium in the water in East Montpelier?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. When I got involved in the project, I had come from Washington, D.C., where I'd lived for 20 years. And one of the things that drew me in was that looking at political activism and the quote of Margaret Mead, paraphrased, that, never doubt that a small group of committed citizens can't change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that does. That's what I saw at work here with the people of East Montpelier. And particularly because they lived in the shadow of the State House, they were able to get the attention of the legislators and say, this water that someone from out of the state wants to bottle and sell from under our feet is ours, and this is important. So I really felt like, that community feeling, which is also prevalent in the film through the town meeting, is so important to the way Vermont governs and the citizen representatives that we have, and the fact that, we do take an interest in changing what the government's doing here.
Was that part of what drew you to this project, being able to tell that story? I mean, what got you involved in this, and why that particular segment?
Well, at the time, because I was new to Vermont, I wanted to find out what this was all about. But I'm also more interested in current issues and people than a lot of historical background. So I was looking for a segment that would show something happening currently, but also this piece I thought could act as a microcosm of what a small group of people in Vermont can do, and have, again, that whole thread of the town meeting that we go and we address these situations with our neighbors and find solutions.
Okay, moving back to farming now, Bobbie, I want to turn to you, and you directed the segment talking about the conventional farming, for example. Let's take a look at a clip first, and then we'll come back and talk with Bobbie Lanahan about that.
I think what's happening in dairying is there are some very, very large operations that are scraping by on economies of scale. They're making money. There are some very, very small operations that are doing organic dairying, and they're making money.
We were so close to being organic because we hadn't used any commercial fertilizers or pesticides or herbicides, and we'd just used remedies on the cows for several years. So the only thing we had to do was feed organic grain for 30 days, and that's what we did. And then we went organic, and they needed the milk, so it kind of worked pretty well that way. That was in 1995, I think.
And Bobbie, I want to talk to you a little bit about that organic movement. It's obviously taken off in a huge way in the past couple of years. Is the organic movement a thing that's here to stay? Is this something that's really going to play a role in saving farming, especially in Vermont, or is this going to be a fad that kind of comes and goes?
I can't predict the future. I interviewed a conventional farmer, and I was aware, I mean, at the time that I did the interview, which is recently, I think organic farming at most is 10% of the farming economy. So I was immersing in the problems. It was eye-opening of conventional farmers with he had 450 cows. As the man said in the clip, you can make money when you have more, and you can when you have fewer, but in the middle, there are just vast problems. And the divide, I learned, between organic and conventional is not huge. There were some misconceptions that got cleared up for me. For one, no antibiotics go into the milk from conventional farmers, or they wouldn't even be a member of the co-op. And they need half the land that organic farmers do because they can promote growth with nitrogen and phosphorus. But and that is what also keeps them from being able to use the organic label. But they may be here to stay because they do grow surplus and they do feed the world. The Cabot co-op that he sells to exports to save people in Africa, and we need excess.
Absolutely. Nora, I want to talk to you a little bit about George. He was one of my favorite characters of your whole movie. Tell me a little bit about how you found him and what role he had in all of this.
Well, George Woodard is someone that I've worked with over the years. He's been in every one of my other feature films, in My Mother's Early Lovers and Nothing Like Dreaming. And I knew, because he's a farmer in real life, you know, he's an actor and a musician too, but actually he makes his living as a farmer. I thought, well, he has to be part of the Vermont movie. And I actually asked him to be involved, and he contributed footage, old footage of his and old photographs. And then I went up quite a few times and just interviewed him up at his farm. And that song, Farm Girl, at the end is one of my favorite songs, so I knew he had to sing it. You know, we chose a song for the ending of every single part of the film, and most of the time you don't see the people playing, but George is so charismatic and good on camera that I thought, well, we have to show him too. So he's part of the movie.
Okay, and coming up next is part 6, the final part of the Vermont movie, the collaborative film that you were executive director on. It's called The People's Power. It talks a lot about Vermont Yankee and its role in Vermont in the past and present, and certainly going forward too, until it gets decommissioned anyway, and then beyond. Tell me a little bit about a little bit more about what we're going to see in part 6 of the Vermont movie.
Well, in part 6, we talk about power. You know, power both metaphoric and literal. Power in the sense that actually the people hopefully have power to make change and to operate their lives in a different way than they are. I mean, the people's power to make change. And then also power, you know, we run, that's how our life works, that's how our cities work, our towns, power. So for me, I wanted to end the series with power, because I really think that that's such a defining issue of our time. And if there's any message that I wanted to impart, it was that actually, something that Holly said earlier, that it's really on the level of small towns and smaller groups and local that we can start making constructive, positive change for the future. That's what I think. And that's why I think Vermont is kind of key to providing a model for how people on the local level can start to affect change in their communities. So decommissioning Vermont Yankee, the Lowell Wind Project, which has, you know, its detractors. But anyway, the idea of power as being a defining issue for the future.
Okay. Nora Jacobson, we'll look forward to that in part 6. Thank you also to Holly Stadtler and Bobbie Lanahan. I'm Colin Parker. We will see you back here for part 6 of the Vermont movie on Vermont PBS.